And if you're a fan of architecture, well, there's a section of Palm Springs that you're going to want to see. Steve Sumrall takes us on a tour of the Twin Palms neighborhood in tonight's edition of Our Desert Past.
So Twin Palms takes its name from the fact that when the neighborhood was first built, William Chiel bequeathed to every home site 2 palm trees.
William Chiel was not only an architect. In addition to his home design talents, he was quite skilled at landscaping.
He made sure that every one of the homes in this neighborhood was purchased fully landscaped. And that was as rare in the 1950s as it is today. But by doing so, Mr. Chiel could keep control over the entire environment. He believed that what he was doing was not just building homes, but creating entire environments for his home buyers to live in. All of the homes in Twin Palms, they started at about $31,000, which was a little bit high for the times, but all of those homes came standard with a swimming pool, with rudimentary air conditioning, and they came with perimeter fencing. So you were getting a lot more than you were getting from other homes comparably priced.
Chiel was employed by the Alexander Construction Company, which was founded by George Alexander and his son, Robert. They built over 22,000 houses in the Coachella Valley between 1955 and 1965. Robert Alexander, who was a college friend of Chiel's, lived in this house with his family. Some past members of the Twin Palms community include Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, Palm Springs' first celebrity mayor Charlie Farrell, sci-fi icon Ray Bradbury, and MASH producer Larry Gelbart. Chiel himself would be honored by this community. February 16, 2016 was proclaimed William Chiel Day, and one street, William Chiel Way, was named in his honor. This was a year before he passed away at the age of 92. And although it's famously referred to as the William Chiel neighborhood, Twin Palms does feature some impressive designs by other notable architects, such as Hal Levitt's trapezoid house.
The facade, the front of the house, has a series of trapezoidal features, which is coffered stonework in a trapezoidal shapes, and that alternates with inverted trapezoid windows. It has a very distinctive look, and that distinction carries to the inside of the home. There is a slightly sunken living room, and every room except the bedrooms have walls of floor-to-ceiling, wall-to-wall glass. So anywhere from the inside of the house, you can look straight through and see the rest of the house. There is another really distinctive standalone residence in the neighborhood is the Trueblood residence.
The idea for this property was conceived by its original owner, Doug Trueblood. Trueblood was a world-renowned theme park designer, so you know it's got to be fun.
The property has 3 separate structures on it. Each one has its own private green space, so you can walk out of whichever unit it is you're using now and be in your own realm separate from the rest of the property.
Also, a swimming pool, 60 feet long and 10 feet wide, takes up 2/3 of the property.
The 3 structures are built around it, and to get from one of the structures to the other, a wooden bridge was built so that you could cross over to the other side.
Twin Palms also features the last home built from a Donald Wexler design, which ironically is also the first home built from a Donald Wexler design.
There were 3 vacant lots, 3 vacant residential lots in the Twin Palms neighborhood. One of them was owned by a couple who wanted to turn that lot into a Don Wexler original house.
Unfortunately, he was retired at the time, so Mr. Wexler recommended one of his proteges to do the work. But when their relationship with that developer didn't work out, they went to the man himself.
So that he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will give you the blueprints for the home that I built for myself and my family when I first moved to the desert, and all you'll have to pay for is whatever upgrades are necessary in order to bring it up to contemporary building code.
And there was one structure designed by Carrie Bigman that was truly out of this world.
One of Carrie Bigman's calling cards was circular features, and you can see on just about every one of the 5 or 6 homes he designed in Twin Palms, and none of them were more so than on the house that is known as the Flying Saucer House. This house no longer exists in this form. It was reimagined several years after it was built, but it was absolutely spectacular at the time and reminded people of a flying saucer that had just landed on the site.
Lastly, Twin Palms is honorably served by Fire Station Number 4, designed by Hugh Capture in 1973. Built in a southwestern Mesa design style, it was abandoned for years, then renovated and put back into service in 2019. For Our Desert Past, Steve Sumrall, NBC Palm Springs, News First.
Well, it's a marvel of postmodern architecture, which has the distinction of having been owned by 2 different sports franchise owners. And it once even hosted rehearsals for the world's greatest rock and roll band. NBC Palm Springs' Steve Sumrall takes us on a tour of the Ocotillo Lodge in this edition of Our Desert Past.
The Ocotillo Lodge is a really important historical building in Palm Springs. It was opened as a hotel in 1957. It was the first building built in Palm Springs by the Alexander Construction Company, and it was the first William Kreisel designed building in Palm Springs. They built the hotel here to house people who might be interested in buying homes in the Twin Palms neighborhood that's directly south of us.
Because of certain restrictions against Jews owning property and recreating just any place, they knew that they would have to create a special place where so much of their anticipated clientele would feel comfortable. They built the Ocotillo Lodge as the place for their prospective homeowners from Los Angeles to come out here and to stay where they wouldn't encounter the restrictions or the prejudices that they would at other locations.
So there were approximately 90 homes for sale near the Ocotillo Lodge. Usually developers would construct several model homes to show potential buyers. In the Twin Palms neighborhood, this was not the case.
When Kreisel designed the lodge, he used the same architectural motifs, the same landscaping materials, the same color palette that was repeated in the homes behind it. And so they could take people to the home sites, show them home sites, and he can show them in brochures what the home would look like, and then he could tour them around the Ocotillo Lodge and get people familiar with what they were hopefully going to purchase.
It isn't just architecture which defines the Ocotillo Lodge. Landscaping has a lot to do with it. You'll find everything from citrus trees to cacti to the namesake Ocotillo plants. And how about that pool?
It was done, if you ask Bill Kreisel, it was done in a keyhole shape to tie in with the hotel idea. There's a lot of people who will tell you it's champagne cork shaped, but that's just sort of like a fun thing that came up afterward.
Currently under renovation is the Candlewood, the restaurant overlooking the pool area. During the heyday of the Ocotillo Lodge, this was the place to be seen. All of the rooms at the Ocotillo Lodge are 1 bedroom, 1 bath, living room, kitchenettes.
Except for the owner suite, which is a suite that was made up by connecting 3 different units. And it's called the owner suite because the Alexanders lived there for a while, as did Gene Autry when he was an owner here afterward.
Yes, you heard that right. Legendary singing cowboy and California Angels owner Gene Autry bought this property in 1963. Believe it or not, Mr. Autry would not be the only sports franchise owner associated with this resort. The Ocotillo Lodge would be purchased by Jerry Buss in 1968, and he still owned the property when he acquired the Lakers in 1979. In 1980, which would mark the team's championship season, members of the Lakers were photographed poolside at the lodge. In addition to Magic and Kareem, I asked Tony Vardaro, the Ocotillo Lodge Homeowners Association president, if any other celebrities have made their way here.
There's a couple people who've rumored to have stayed here, and if you walk around the grounds, you'll see a lot of the units on their doors have the Lucille Ball suite or the Marilyn Monroe suite. Of course, that's hard to verify after all this time.
But there's one story out of the history of the Ocotillo Lodge that has become legendary, and it involves the world's greatest rock and roll band.
A guest was staying here in the summer in the early 70s, and he heard, it was practically empty because it was summer, and he heard what sounded like a weird version of a Rolling Stones song, and so he started walking around the grounds, and he found the Rolling Stones were here, staying here between gigs, one in San Diego, one in Los Angeles. They stayed here in between and were jamming.
The Ocotillo Lodge serves as a reminder of the unique talents of the Alexanders, the father-son construction business which ended in tragedy. On November 14th, 1965, George Alexander and his wife Jimmy, as well as Robert Alexander and his wife Helene, were killed when their charter plane crashed near Indio. The Ocotillo Lodge still serves the Palm Springs community, but it caters to people who are interested in staying for a more definite period of time. These rooms are now condominiums, and recent renovations are underway to restore some of the structure's former glory.
But the paint scheme that you see around here is utilizing colors that were in Bill Kreisel, the architect's original color plan. It's not the exact same look that it would have had in 1957. There's a little bit of modification as far as what's painted, but it is the same colors.
For Our Desert Past, Steve Sumrall, NBC Palm Springs, News First.